not sure exactly what I'm trying to do with this show anymore. By that I mean, I think I started with a specific idea of what I wanted to accomplish, but in the year and 2 months since then, that idea has more or less been abandoned entirely. Originally, I set out to preserve some memory of what 90s music sounded like based on my own experience, for the benefit of anyone who wasn't around at the time. Or maybe for those who were, to provide them with some kind of historical record that they could either dispute or concur with. Some reassurance that this happened and you remember it. But now I don't think I'm even trying to do any of that. In fact, the more I go back and listen to old 90s music, the more it seems as if recreating the exact experience I had is impossible. I certainly can't do it even for myself. The whole idea of talking about all these different musical acts and genres that have absolutely nothing in common with each other except for the fact that they all happen to occur in the same decade seems patently absurd. So in conclusion, 90s music is a land of contrasts. I can't form a coherent narrative around such a vague framework, and I'd argue that no one can. I think the underlying problem is that the meaning of certain music changes over time. Even if it seems to make sense in the moment, nothing ever stays the same. Wow, things change over time. And memory is unreliable. Who knew, right? That's a kind of brilliant insight you can expect from me when you subscribe. I'll give you an example. This week, I'm talking about Bewitched. Now, personally, I remember this group. I can probably explain them to you semi-comprehensibly. I could sit here and tell you that they were basically an Irish Spice Girls knockoff, except pitched at a slightly younger demographic, and call it a day. That would be basically accurate, and more importantly, it would be easy. But it cannot convey exactly what a bizarre and otherworldly experience it is to go back and listen to this stuff, and to think that at one point, it was accepted mainstream entertainment. This is what I mean when I say that it is impossible to recreate the experience of hearing this music when it was still new. How were we supposed to know it would end up sounding like this? I guess it's just hard to get my mind around the world being so different back then. A group of young girls making upbeat, straightforward pop music and being successful at it is now an unthinkable anomaly 20 years after the fact. Is 20 years really enough time for a culture to shift so radically? I know pop music has always been an endless gold rush chasing the latest novelty, but the other half of that equation is rooted in a certain tradition. Things are supposed to go out of style, but after a recognizable fashion. In a way, the fact that this kind of music now seems hopelessly quaint is proof that it was representative 90s pop in the truest sense, designed to be consumed and discarded as efficiently as possible, and that it did its job about as well as could be expected. Planned obsolescence is a feature here, not a bug. Bewitched, or Bwitched as I like to call them, are Sinead O'Carroll, Lindsay Armao, and twins Edel and Kiwi Lynch. Kiwi and Edel happen to have an older brother named Shane, who was a member of the mid-90s Irish boy band called Boyzone. Kiwi met Sinead while working in her father's garage as a mechanic, and then became friends with Lindsay after meeting her at a kickboxing class. And in 1996, they decided to form a musical group, and went through names like Butterfly Farm and Desire before choosing to go by Bewitched. Unfortunately, I can't account for exactly why they chose this name. Even the asterisk remains a mystery. I do know that they went well out of their way to remind people they are Irish at every available opportunity. Seriously, this is probably the most Irish-centric group I'll ever talk about. So my only guess is that maybe witchcraft has some kind of tradition in Irish folklore? At any rate, the name The Banshees is already taken by Susie Sue. Soon, thanks to the help of the Lynch twins' more well-connected brother, the group signed to the Glowworm imprint of Epic Records and set about cobbling together an aesthetic. Now at this time, a group from a United Kingdom-adjacent country composed entirely of young women was inevitably going to invite comparison to the Spice Girls. But Bewitched took several shrewd steps to set themselves apart from them. Image-wise, rather than color-code themselves and assume stereotypical personality traits, they wore matching denim outfits and attempted to come across as more down-to-earth girl-next-door types. Also, they apparently claimed to be younger than they actually were at the time. According to an article on an Irish entertainment site from 2000, Sinead O'Carroll had initially stated her year of birth as 1978, before it was revealed that it was actually 1973. But even their sound diverged from what the Spice Girls had been doing at the time in pretty notable ways. In fact, I'm going to be brutally honest here and state that with the Spice Girls, the music was almost beside the point. They were a commodity first, a gimmick second, a catchphrase third, and maybe a musical act as barely an afterthought. Bewitched, despite being a group that was clearly indebted to the commercial success of the Spice Girls, were a little more authentic than that. They weren't a manufactured commercial product. They were friends and sisters who actually knew each other before joining the group and formed organically. the way it's supposed to be. Music was something that they had collectively decided to pursue together for the sheer fun and joy of it. With that in mind, let's take a listen to the first single off of their 1998 self-titled debut album, produced by Glowworm co-owner Ray Hedges. This song is called C'est la vie.
Some people say I look like me dad.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Some people say I look like me dad.
But why? Why would you start a song that way? Is that a joke? Some kind of Irish thing? You know what, I'm not going to question it. If I get hung up on every baffling thing from a pop song from 1998, we'll be here all day. Let's just push through.
I got a house with the windows and doors. I'll show you mine and show me yours.
You know, for a group that's supposedly aiming for a younger audience, they sure do slip a lot of sexually suggestive lyrics into this song.
Play with the girls, play with the boys. Do you ever get lonely playing with your toys?
Wait a minute. Haven't I heard this kind of thing before? Oh yeah, isn't this the same sexualizing children's entertainment shtick that Aqua was doing at the time? So this single is probably their best known song, and went to #1 in the UK singles chart. Reportedly, this made Bewitched the youngest girl group ever to reach the #1 spot in that country. Although given the whole lied about their ages thing, I'm not sure how accurate this was even at the time. In the US, this song got up to #9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and... I'm sorry, what is happening? Oh, right, of course. I forgot for 0.5 seconds that they were Irish. This is a style of step dancing called river dance, in case you're not familiar with your Irish jigs, and it was having this moment of popularity in the mid-90s mainstream due to a successful stage show / musical by Bill Whelan, as well as Lord of the Dance by Michael Flatley. As far as I know, not a whole lot of other acts in pop music attempted to capitalize on that trend, and I'm willing to guess there was a reason for that. I'm not sure if this authentic fiddling, the tone of it sounds a bit synthy to me, although there is a Daniel Collier listed as playing the fiddle on the album credits, as well as a Snake Wilson on Tin Whistle. These touches of traditional Irish folk music mixed with modern day dance pop gave Bewitched their signature sound, and it recurs throughout the album, but it never really rises above being a gimmick. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that this song doesn't make some neglected part of me feel deliriously happy, but once your system recovers from the hallucinatory fever dream quality of the overall package, there's not a whole lot to it under the surface. The other singles from the album aren't quite as cutesy or novelty-esque as C'est la vie, but the songwriting, mostly by Martin Brannigan, Tracy Ackerman, and Ray Hedges, steals a few too many passages from previous hit songs. Other than C'est la vie, the only track with any songwriting input from the actual members of Bewitched is Castles in the Air.
Together building castles in the air.
Which is... fine. But it's a little too new agey Enya-esque for me. Not that I have any problem with Enya, but I feel like a 90s girl pop group are maybe not the best candidates to be making this kind of stuff. This one has an intriguing sort of throwback disco vibe to it, but at 2 minutes 11 seconds, it comes across feeling a little underdeveloped.
Just blame it on the weatherman standing on the shore.
I think this single comes closest to being a legitimately memorable song from this album. It doesn't rely as much on the group's youthful energy or leprechaun-esque sensibility, yet it's also not so wispy that it threatens to just up and vanish as you're listening to it.
The rain goes on.
In fact, imagine my surprise when the follow-up album from Bewitched, 1999's Awake and Breathe, actually turned out to lean more towards this type of song than what they had spent most of the first album doing. The songs in the second album tend to come across as a little more mature and focused and not as playful or winky as the debut. This means that some of the tracks end up sounding a little too boring for this genre, but also that none of them are as obnoxiously cheeky as their most ridiculous moments. Not that it's still music I'd be inclined to take seriously. It's still very much a late 90s pop record, but compared to what they were doing before, it's a little more low-key and conventional. Even the awkward Irish music passages are shoehorned in with a little more subtlety, and the group's overall presentation makes for a more understated experience. If you made a list of the most unlikely collaborations from 1999 as a joke, I would have to say that Bewitched and Ladysmith Black Mambazo would fit right in there. Wow, they really are downplaying the whole representing Irish culture thing. None of the singles from Awake and Breathe reached #1 in the UK, which was apparently a huge letdown seeing as how all 4 singles from the first album accomplished that. In the meantime, the group recorded covers of songs by ABBA, Tony Basil, and Wild Cherry, while touring Europe and the United States with NSYNC and Britney Spears. In 2001, they were working on a 3rd album and got as far as selecting the first single from it, before being dropped by Sony, the parent company that owned their label. Unable to release a new album or secure a new recording contract, the group disbanded in 2002, following the departure of Sinead O'Carroll. In 2013, the group's lineup reunited as part of a UK reality show called The Big Reunion, which led to their first tour in 12 years. This, in turn, led to the release of a new EP in 2014 called Champagne or Guinness. I've also read that they were part of a European pop tour with Venga Boys and Aqua, which is some serious rad 90s music tic-tac-toe if I've ever seen it. And I guess they will continue performing for as long as there's still an audience for them. For a 90s pop act that was never one of the biggest, that's actually not a bad outcome. And even though a group like this could never exist today, who knows what the future will hold. Bewitched may well turn out to be significant in some impossible to foresee way. 20 years from now, maybe there will even be some old bag like me up here who can explain to you how. I'm Jacob, and this was Rad 90s Music. I'll see you sometime in the future.